The call came at 2:47 in the morning, and I almost didn't answer. I'd been asleep for maybe an hour, finally drifting off after another night of staring at the ceiling, when my phone lit up on the nightstand. Unknown number. No caller ID. Just a string of digits that didn't match any area code I recognized. I should have let it go to voicemail. That's what any sensible person would do at nearly 3 in the morning. But something made me reach for it. Some instinct, some pull I couldn't explain. I answered. Hello? Static. The hiss and crackle of a bad connection, like the sound of radio waves from very far away. Hello? Who's this? And then I heard it. A voice I hadn't heard in 6 years. A voice I'd listened to my entire childhood. A voice that had sung me lullabies and read me stories and told me she loved me every single day until the day she died. Tommy? Tommy, is that you? My mother's voice. My dead mother's voice. I'm so sorry, she said, and she was crying. I could hear the tears in her voice, the way it cracked and trembled, the same way it had sounded at my father's funeral, the same way it had sounded when she called to tell me she was sick. I'm so sorry for what I did. I never meant for any of this. Atal, please forgive me, please. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I sat there in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my dead mother sob, and apologize for something I didn't understand. Mom? I finally managed. I didn't know, she said. I swear I didn't know what would happen. They told me it would be different. They promised. But it's not different, Tommy. It's so much worse. It's so dark here, so cold. And they won't let me stop. They won't let any of us stop. Mom, what are you talking about? Mom, you're dead. You died 6 years ago. I know, she whispered. I know I'm dead. That's why I'm calling. That's why I have to apologize. For what I did before, for what I'm doing now, for what's coming. What's coming? Mom, I don't understand. The static grew louder. Her voice started to fade. Don't answer the door, Tommy. No matter what you hear, no matter who you see, don't let them in. Don't let me in. Mom, wait. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The line went dead. I sat in the darkness for a long time, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. It wasn't her. It couldn't have been her. My mother was dead. I'd been at her bedside when she took her last breath. I'd held her hand as she slipped away. I'd given the eulogy at her funeral and watched them lower her coffin into the ground and thrown the first handful of dirt on top of it. She was dead. Dead people don't make phone calls. But that voice was hers. I would have recognized it anywhere. The way she said my name, the way she cried, the specific cadence of her apologies, the same rhythm I'd heard 1,000 times growing up. It was her. And she'd said she was sorry for what she did. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, trying to convince myself it had been a dream, a prank call, some elaborate hoax designed by someone who knew me, who knew what my mother sounded like, who wanted to hurt me for reasons I couldn't fathom. But who would do that? Who could do that? My mother had been dead for 6 years. Most of my friends had never even heard her voice. And the things she'd said, the specific words, the fear in her voice when she told me not to answer the door, no one could have faked that. No one could have known to say those things. When the sun came up, I made coffee and tried to go about my day. I went to work. I answered emails. I sat in meetings and nodded at things I didn't hear. But the whole time, my mother's voice echoed in my head. I'm so sorry for what I did. What had she done? My mother had been a good person. Kind. Generous. The type of woman who volunteered at soup kitchens and took in stray cats and never had a bad word to say about anyone. She'd raised me alone after my father died, worked 2 jobs to put me through college, sacrificed everything so I could have a better life. What could she possibly have done that required an apology from beyond the grave? I called my aunt that afternoon, my mother's sister, the only family I had left. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Tommy, is everything okay? I need to ask you something about Mom." A pause. "What about her? Did she ever tell you about anything she regretted? Anything she felt guilty about? Anything she might have done that she was ashamed of?" Another pause, longer this time. "Why are you asking this?" "I just need to know, Aunt Carol, please." She was quiet for so long, I thought she'd hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, careful, like she was choosing every word with precision. "Your mother was a complicated woman, Tommy. She loved you more than anything, but there were things in her past, things she didn't like to talk about." "What kind of things?" "I don't think I should." "Aunt Carol, please. This is important." She sighed. "There was something years ago. Before you were born, your mother was part of a group, a kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, a spiritual group. They had meetings, rituals. She never told me the details, but something happened, something bad. She left the group and never spoke about it again. She made me promise not to tell you." "What kind of group? What happened?" "I don't know, Tommy. I really don't. She wouldn't say, but whatever it was, it haunted her. I'd catch her sometimes late at night, staring out the window like she was waiting for something. And sometimes she'd say things in her sleep. Strange things. Names I didn't recognize, words in languages I'd never heard." My blood ran cold. "What names?" "I don't remember. It was so long ago, but there was one she said more than the others, over and over again. Malthus, I think, or Maltiel, something like that." I wrote the name down. My hand was shaking. "Tommy, why are you asking about this? What's going on?" "Nothing," I lied. "I just found some old papers of Mom's. I was curious." "You should leave it alone. Whatever your mother was involved in, she got out. She left it behind. She wouldn't want you digging it up." "You're right. I'm sure it's nothing." I hung up and stared at the name I'd written. Maltiel. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what my mother had been involved in or what she'd done, but I knew one thing for certain. The call I'd received at 2:47 in the morning hadn't been a prank. And whatever was happening, it was only the beginning. I started noticing things after that first call. Small things at first. My reflection in the mirror moved a half-second too slow. Shadows in the corners of my apartment that seemed darker than they should be. A persistent chill that no amount of heating could dispel. I blamed it on lack of sleep, on stress, on the trauma of hearing my dead mother's voice in the middle of the night. The mind plays tricks when it's tired, I told myself, when it's afraid. But then the dream started, every night the same dream. I was standing in a vast empty space, darkness stretching in every direction. And in that darkness, I could see shapes moving. Shapes that were almost human, but not quite. Shapes with too many limbs, too many eyes, too many mouths. They circled me slowly, getting closer with each revolution, whispering words I couldn't understand. And at the center of the circle, standing directly in front of me, was my mother. She looked the way she had before the cancer, healthy, strong, beautiful. But her eyes were wrong. They were completely black, no whites, no iris, just 2 pools of absolute darkness that seemed to go on forever. "They're coming, Tommy," she said in the dream. "They're almost here." "Who's coming?" "All of them. Everyone who's been waiting, everyone who's been hungry." "What do they want?" She smiled and her mouth was full of too many teeth. "Everything." I'd wake up screaming, covered in sweat, the taste of copper in my mouth. And each morning I'd find new marks on my body, scratches I didn't remember making, bruises in the shape of fingers. Once, I woke to find strange symbols drawn on my chest in my own blood. I didn't remember doing any of it. The days weren't much better. I started seeing things in my peripheral vision, faces at windows, figures in doorways. Once I saw a woman standing on the street corner across from my office, and I could have sworn it was my mother. Same height, same posture, same coat she'd worn the winter before she died. But when I looked directly at her, she was gone. I tried to tell myself it was grief, delayed mourning, some kind of psychotic break brought on by the stress of hearing her voice. I even made an appointment with a psychiatrist, convinced myself I needed help. I never made it to the appointment. The night before, I found the photographs. They were scattered across my kitchen table when I came home from work. Old photographs, yellowed with age, showing people I'd never seen before. Men and women, 13 of them, standing in a circle in what looked like a barn. They were holding hands. Their eyes were closed. Their mouths were open, frozen mid-chant. And at the center of the circle, something was forming, a shape made of shadow and light, coiling upward like smoke from a fire. In the photograph, it was just a blur, an indistinct darkness. But somehow, looking at it, I could feel it looking back. I turned the photograph over. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, December 21st, 1988. The door is open. I recognized one of the faces in the photograph. A young woman on the far left of the circle, her face tilted upward, her expression caught between ecstasy and terror. My mother. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old. There were more photographs beneath that one, the same circle, taken from different angles. Close-ups of the symbols they'd drawn on the floor. Images of the shadow at the center growing larger and more defined with each shot. The last photograph showed the aftermath. The barn was destroyed. Half of it collapsed inward like something had exploded from inside. 3 bodies lay on the ground, twisted in positions that shouldn't have been possible. The survivors were scattered around them, their faces blank with shock. And standing in the doorway of the ruined barn, silhouetted against the morning light, was a figure. Tall, thin, wrong. Its proportions didn't match any human body, its limbs bent at angles that defied anatomy. It was looking directly at the camera, directly at me. I burned the photographs. I burned them in my sink, watching them curl and blacken and turn to ash. But that night, they were back on my kitchen table, exactly where I'd found them. I burned them again. They came back again. After the 3rd time, I stopped trying. The second call came 2 nights later. Same time, 2:47 a.m. Same unknown number, same static when I answered. But this time, my mother wasn't alone. "Tommy?" Her voice distant and distorted like she was calling from the bottom of a well. "Tommy, can you hear me?" "Mom, what's happening? What is this?" "They're listening," she whispered. "They're always listening. I don't have much time. They only let me call when they want something." "Who's listening? Who are they?" "The others. The ones I made promises to. The ones I helped bring through." "Bring through? Through what?" "The door, Tommy. The door I helped open. The door that's never been closed." I could hear sounds in the background now. Not static. Something else. Voices. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all whispering at once. I couldn't make out words, but I could feel the intent behind them. Hunger. Anticipation. Want. "What door?" "Mom, I don't understand." "It was supposed to be temporary. They said they just wanted to visit, to see what the living world was like. They'd been in the dark so long, they said, they just wanted to feel the warmth again." We believed them. We opened the door, just a crack, just for a moment. Who's we? The circle. The 13 of us who performed the ritual. We thought we were doing something beautiful. We thought we were helping lost souls find peace. And her voice broke. They weren't lost souls, Tommy. They weren't souls at all. They were something else. Something that had never been human. Something that had been waiting in the dark since before humans existed, waiting for someone stupid enough to open a door. The whispering in the background grew louder. I could hear individual words now. My name, over and over. Tommy, Tommy, Tommy. They came through, my mother continued. Not all of them, just a few, at first. But they've been pulling more through ever since, using us. The 13 of us who opened the door. We're their anchors, their connection to this world. As long as we exist, the door stays open. But you're dead, Mom. You died 6 years ago. Death doesn't free you from them, Tommy. Death just moves you closer to their side of the door. I'm here now, in the dark with them, and they're using me to reach you. Why me? Silence, a terrible, empty silence. Mom? Because of what I did, she finally said. When I was pregnant with you, when I was scared and alone and didn't know how to raise a child by myself, they offered me a deal. They said they'd help me, they'd protect you, they'd make sure you had a good life. All I had to do was promise them something in return. What did you promise them? She was crying again. I could hear it even through the static, even through the whispers, even through the vast distance between us. You, Tommy, I promised them you, when the time came. When the door was ready to open all the way, I promised them you would be the one to finish it. To finish what? To let them all through. To open the door so wide it can never be closed again. They've been preparing you your whole life. Everything that's happened to you, every choice you've made, every path you've walked, they've been guiding you here, to this moment, to this call. I won't do it. Whatever they want, I won't do it. You won't have a choice. None of us had a choice. They're inside you, Tommy. They've been inside you since before you were born. You just couldn't see them, couldn't feel them. But they're there. And they're almost ready. The whispers became a roar, a sound so loud it should have shattered my phone, should have burst my eardrums, should have torn apart the fabric of reality itself. I screamed. I dropped the phone. I could still hear them, even with the phone on the floor, even with my hands over my ears. Tommy, Tommy, Tommy. And suddenly silence. I lay on the floor in the dark, gasping, trembling, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. The room was quiet. The phone was dark. My mother's voice was gone. I didn't sleep that night either. I spent the next week trying to learn everything I could about my mother's past. I started with the papers in the attic, boxes I'd inherited after her death but never opened. Letters, journals, photographs, documents dating back decades. Most of it was ordinary: birthday cards, tax returns, recipes clipped from magazines. But at the bottom of one box, hidden beneath layers of old clothes, I found something else. A leather journal bound with cord, its pages yellowed with age. No title, no name. Just page after page of handwritten text in my mother's careful script. It was a record of the circle. The entries started in 1987, 3 years before I was born. My mother wrote about joining a group called the Threshold Society. They met every month in a farmhouse outside of town. There were 13 members, all women, all seeking something they couldn't find in the ordinary world. They believed they'd made contact with beings from another plane of existence. Spirits, they called them at first. Guides, teachers. The beings communicated through automatic writing, through visions, through dreams. They shared knowledge, secrets, promises of power and enlightenment and eternal life. My mother's entries became more excited as the months went on. The beings had chosen them, she wrote, had selected them for a sacred purpose. They were going to open a door between worlds, allowing the spirits to visit the living realm. It would be beautiful. It would change everything. The ritual took place on the winter solstice of 1988. The 13 members gathered in the farmhouse, surrounded by candles, chanting words they didn't understand. My mother described what happened next in fragmentary sentences, as if she could barely bring herself to write it. The door opened. Something came through. It wasn't what they expected. 3 of the 13 died that night. The others scattered, fleeing into the darkness, trying to escape what they had unleashed. But it was too late. The door was open, and the things on the other side had found their anchors. My mother's entries after that were sporadic, terrified. She wrote about nightmares, about seeing shapes in the corners of rooms, about voices whispering in her head. She wrote about the others, the surviving members of the circle, dying one by one under mysterious circumstances. And then, in 1990, she wrote about being pregnant. She didn't know who the father was. She'd been alone for months, too afraid to leave her apartment, too paranoid to let anyone close. But somehow, impossibly, she was carrying a child. They told her it was a gift, she wrote, a reward for her service. They promised to protect the child, to give it a good life, to keep it safe until the time came. She didn't write what the time was for, but I could guess. The last entry in the journal was dated 2 weeks before my birthday. One sentence written in shaking letters. I'm sorry for what I'm bringing into the world. I'm sorry for what he'll have to become. I closed the journal. My hands were numb. My mind was blank. Everything I knew about my life, about myself, about who I was and where I came from, was a lie. I wasn't my mother's child. I was their vessel, their key, the thing they'd been preparing for 30 years to open the door. The third call came that night, 2:47 a.m. I was awake, waiting for it. Tommy, I read your journal, Mom. I know what you did. Silence. I know about the circle, the ritual, the things that came through. I know what you promised them. Then you know why I'm sorry. You sold me, Mom, before I was even born. You sold me to those things. I didn't have a choice. They were in my head, in my dreams. They showed me what would happen if I refused. The things they would do to me, the things they would do to everyone I loved. I was scared, Tommy. I was so scared. So you gave them me instead. I thought I could protect you. I thought if I was good enough, careful enough, they'd leave you alone. I did everything they asked. I opened the smaller doors. I helped them find new anchors. I spent my whole life serving them, hoping they'd forget about you, hoping they'd find someone else. But they didn't. No, they never forget. They never give up. They've been waiting since before time began. A few more years means nothing to them. What do they want me to do? There's a ritual, the final ritual, the one that opens the door all the way. It has to be performed by someone who was marked before birth, someone who carries their essence inside them, someone like you. I won't do it. You will. You don't have a choice. They're already inside you. They've been inside you your whole life. Every thought you think, every feeling you feel, they're there, watching, waiting. And when the time comes, they'll take control. They'll use your hands as to draw the symbols, your voice to speak the words, your blood to seal the door open forever. How do I stop them? She laughed. A terrible, broken sound. You can't stop them, Tommy. No one can stop them. The only thing you can do is make it hurt less. Submit. Accept. Let them take what they want. Fighting only makes it worse. There has to be something, some way to close the door, some way to get them out of me. There's nothing. I've been here for 6 years, Tommy, on their side of the door. I've seen what's waiting. Millions of them. Billions. Things that have no name, no shape, no beginning or end. And they're all hungry. They're all coming, and you're going to let them in. I won't. You will, because if you don't, they'll take everyone you love first, everyone you've ever cared about. They'll drag them through the door one by one, and they'll make you watch. They'll make you hear their screams. And then, when there's no one left, when you're alone in the dark with nothing but their voices in your head, you'll do whatever they ask. You'll beg to do it, just to make the screaming stop. The line went dead. I sat in the silence, the journal in my lap, my mother's words echoing in my head. She was right. I could feel them now. The things inside me, they'd always been there, I realized. The shadows in the corner of my vision. The whispers I heard when I was falling asleep. The dreams I could never quite remember. They'd been watching me my whole life, guiding me, shaping me into what they needed me to be. And I had no idea how to stop them. The next few days were the worst of my life. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except the things my mother had told me. I started seeing them more clearly now. The shapes in the darkness, the figures that stood at the foot of my bed at night, the faces that appeared in mirrors when I wasn't looking directly at them. They were getting stronger, more visible, more present. Every night at 2:47, my phone would ring. Sometimes I answered, sometimes I didn't. It didn't seem to matter. I could hear them whether I picked up or not. Their voices in my head, their whispers in my dreams. My apartment became a prison. I covered all the mirrors. I unplugged the television because I kept seeing faces in the static. I stopped checking my email after I found messages from accounts that didn't exist, all containing the same 5 words. We are almost through. I tried to research the Threshold Society. I found nothing. No records, no websites, no mention of it anywhere. It was like it had never existed. I tried to find the other members of the circle. The names my mother had mentioned in her journal, all of them were dead. Some had died years ago in accidents or illnesses. Others had simply vanished, their cases still open, their bodies never found. My mother had been the last. And now she was gone too, serving them from the other side of the door. I was alone. I tried reaching out to people I knew, old friends, co-workers, anyone who might listen. But every conversation felt hollow. Every interaction felt like performance. I could see it in their eyes when I tried to explain what was happening. The concern that wasn't quite concern. The distance that grew wider with every word. They thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But then the things started happening to them too. My friend Marcus called me in a panic at 3 a.m. He said he'd woken up to find a woman standing at the foot of his bed. An older woman. She'd just been staring at him. When he turned on the light, she was gone. She looked like your mom, Tommy. I saw pictures at her funeral. It looked exactly like her. He stopped returning my calls after that night. When I went to his apartment to check on him, a stranger answered the door, said she'd lived there for years. Said she'd never heard of anyone named Marcus. His name had been erased from our company directory. His social media accounts had vanished. His phone number was disconnected. It was like he'd never existed. The same thing happened to 2 more people I'd talked to about my mother's calls. They'd seen things, heard things, and then they were gone, erased from reality like words from a whiteboard. I stopped talking to anyone about what was happening. I stopped talking to anyone at all. The fourth call came 3 nights later, but this time it wasn't my mother's voice. "Hello, Tommy." A man's voice, deep, resonant, cold. "Who is this?" "You know who I am. You've always known. I've been with you since the beginning." "Maltiel." "Very good. Your mother told you about me. She told me what you did to her, what you made her do." "We didn't make her do anything. She came to us. They all came to us, begging for power, for knowledge, for meaning in their empty little lives. We simply gave them what they asked for. You used them. You tricked them into opening the door. We showed them the door. They chose to open it, just as you will choose to open it wider. Just as you will choose to let us all through. I'll never do that. You will, because you're one of us, Tommy. You always have been. We made you, shaped you. Every cell in your body carries our mark. You couldn't refuse us, even if you wanted to." "I do refuse. I won't do your ritual. I won't open your door." He laughed. The sound filled my head, echoing from everywhere at once. "You don't have to do anything, Tommy. The ritual has already begun. It began the moment you answered your mother's call. Every word you've heard, every fear you've felt, every question you've asked, it's all part of the pattern. You've been drawing the symbols in your mind without even knowing it, speaking the words every time you think about what's happening, sealing the door open a little, wider with every breath you take. You're lying. Look at your hands." I looked down. My hands were covered in ink. Black lines, geometric patterns, symbols I'd never seen before but somehow recognized. I hadn't been holding a pen. I hadn't drawn anything. But there they were, covering my palms, my fingers, my wrists. "You've been writing all night," Maltiel said. "In your sleep, in your waking hours. You don't remember because we don't let you remember, but you've been preparing. You've been getting ready. Stop it. Get out of my head." "We can't get out, Tommy. We're part of you. We've been since before you were born. Your mother gave you to us, body and soul. There's nothing left of you that isn't ours." I hung up. I scrubbed my hands until they bled. But in the morning, the symbols were back. Different ones this time, more complex, more complete. I was running out of time. I had to find a way to stop this, to close the door, to get them out of me before it was too late. I went back to my mother's journal, searching for something I'd missed. Some clue, some hint, some way to undo what she'd done. On the last page, tucked into the binding, I found a folded piece of paper. A letter addressed to me. "Tommy, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and they've started calling. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for everything. There's one thing I didn't tell you, one thing they don't know I know. The door can be closed. Not from this side, but from theirs. Someone has to go through. Someone who carries their mark. Someone who can speak the words of unbinding from inside the darkness. They never told us this because they never thought one of their vessels would be willing to do it. To sacrifice themselves. To step through the door and close it from the other side, trapping themselves in the dark forever. I wasn't brave enough to do it. I was too afraid of what waited on the other side. But maybe you're stronger than me. Maybe you can do what I couldn't. If you want to close the door, you have to go through it. You have to let them take you. And then, when you're on their side, you have to speak the words I've written below. The words of unbinding, the words that will seal the door forever. I don't know what happens after. I don't know if there's any peace in that darkness, any rest, any end. But at least they won't be able to hurt anyone else. At least you'll have stopped them. I love you, Tommy. I've always loved you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I couldn't be the mother you deserved. Please forgive me. Below her signature, she'd written 5 words in a language I'd never seen. But somehow, looking at them, I understood what they meant. I am the closing door. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I made my decision. The fifth call came at 2:47 a.m., exactly as I knew it would. "Tommy." My mother's voice, desperate, afraid. "Tommy, don't do what I think you're doing." "I have to, Mom. I know. There has to be another way." "There isn't. You said so yourself. The only way to close the door is from the inside." "I didn't mean for you to. I never wanted you to." "I know. But it's the only way." I could hear them now, the others, the things that lived in the dark. They were screaming, raging, trying to stop what I was about to do. But they couldn't. Not anymore. I'd stopped being afraid of them. "I forgive you, Mom, for everything." She was crying. I could hear it through the static, through the screaming, through the vast distance between us. "I don't deserve forgiveness. Maybe not. But I'm giving it to you anyway." I hung up the phone. I looked at the words I'd written on my hand, the words of unbinding, the words that would close the door forever. I closed my eyes and I spoke them. The darkness came for me immediately. It rushed in from every direction, filling my vision, my lungs, my mind. I felt myself being pulled, dragged through something that wasn't space, something that wasn't time, something that was older and colder and more terrible than anything I could have imagined. And then I was through. I was on the other side of the door. I can't describe what I saw. There are no words for it, no human concepts that apply. Just darkness, endless darkness. And in that darkness, shapes. Millions of them. Billions. All watching me, all waiting. They knew what I was going to do. I could feel their anger, their fear, their desperate hunger. They reached for me, tried to stop me, tried to tear the words out of my mind before I could speak them. But I was faster. I opened my mouth. I spoke the words. The words of unbinding. The words that had been waiting 30 years to be spoken. I am the closing door. The effect was immediate. The darkness began to contract. The shapes began to scream. The door that had been open for so long, began to close. I felt them being pulled back, ripped away from the living world, cut off from the anchors they'd spent so long cultivating. The door was closing and they couldn't stop it. And I was closing with it. I'm on the other side now, in the dark. With them. The door is closed. I can feel it. Sealed forever. Nothing can come through anymore. Nothing from their side, nothing from mine. I thought it would be cold here. I thought it would be terrifying. And it is, in a way. The darkness is absolute. The silence is total. I can feel them all around me, the things that wanted to devour the world, and they're angry. So angry. But they can't hurt me anymore. The words of unbinding did something to me, changed me. I'm part of the door now, part of the seal. As long as I exist, they can't get through. I don't know how long I'll be here. I don't know if time even exists in this place. Maybe I'll be here forever. Maybe I'll fade away eventually and the door will open again. But for now, it's closed. For now, the world is safe. I can hear my mother sometimes. In the darkness. She's here too, somewhere. All the anchors are here. All the members of the circle who died, serving the things beyond the door. She doesn't apologize anymore. She just says she's proud of me. I hope she can hear me when I say I love her. I hope she knows I meant what I said about forgiveness, and I hope, wherever you are, whoever you are, you never answer the phone when someone calls from the other side. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Some apologies are meant to go unanswered, and some darkness is better left alone.